Well, good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Last year, when we had this day, we had a bit of a rain out. And I know some of you might have been here last year, but it was quite a wet day. We had to cancel the soccer game, or as they say in Europe, the football game. We had to cancel the boat race. That had to take place virtually a few weeks later. But we're lucky this weekend. We're going to get it all off just as we planned. Let's see, we have a good group of freshman parents in particular today and tomorrow. First, I want to apologize to everyone, the freshman parents. There was some scheduling challenges, as you know. The freshmen had a field day, or they went to see the boat show up in Norwalk. And let's put it this way, the traffic did not cooperate. And Bradley Golden, who lives in Queens, by the way, should know better. He said they would be back for dinner at 5:30. We all didn't believe it. We figured they'd be back at least a half an hour, maybe an hour later. It turned out somewhere even later than that, so apologies for that if it screwed up your evening plans. But anyway, you can certainly enjoy dinners with your sons or daughters tonight without scheduling challenges, so that's good. Let's see. We're going to talk about quite a few things. I'll give you an update about what's going on around campus. We have 105 students this year. Of them, 5 are actually over in the UK in the fall, because we have an exchange program going with Southampton University. And I think they must have already gone either this week or next week, heading over there. They start later than we do here. 25% women at Webb here. We have 10 full-time faculty and 5 adjuncts. Of the adjuncts, some interesting courses that we're teaching. We have a course in, I think these are for the juniors, if I have it correctly. One is on law. We have a Judge Driscoll, who's teaching the course in law, giving a bit of a broad exposure to the legal system and contracts and all that kind of thing. There's a course on Egyptology that's been taught now for a couple of years, quite interesting. And another one on the social history of rock and roll. So we try to do something beyond naval architecture and marine engineering. All those things are important in your lives to have a broad outlook on life. You all know about our full tuition scholarship. Of course, we'll talk a little later about what we're doing on the economic side of things. And this year, about 18% of students are receiving some level of financial aid. That varies year by year. It has gone up to 25% roughly are receiving financial aid. And that is, of course, towards the room and board and fee costs that we have here at Webb. So we all know why Webb is special. That's why we're here. That's why we selected Webb. What a little bit different, I highlighted it in the slide this year. We had last year a bumper crop of applications. For the years prior, we had been having about 180 to 190 applications per year. Last year we had 250. So all of a sudden, a big increase in interest in applying to Webb. So our acceptance rate actually, come on down, plenty of room down, don't be shy. We had actually the acceptance rate dropped from about 18-19% to 14% because of the increase in applications. We do have much more visibility these days. You will see Kay Lynn in the back. Say hello, Kay. She's our Director of Communications and Marketing. We very much try to get the word out about Webb, to be known to the, well, beyond the community, beyond Marine, really into the, if you're interested in STEM, you should know about Webb. That's my goal in terms of exposure. I think every high school student who is great in STEM should decide not to go to Webb rather than us trying to make ourselves known. That should be the goal. It's a tough goal to get to. We're competing against colleges that have millions in marketing budgets, but we do our best at putting the word out about Webb. You all know about the winter internship program. Obviously for the freshman parents, you will hear more about that over the course of the months to come. For freshmen, of course, they will be going to work in a shipyard in the winter, and we find the slots for the students. The students run themselves an internal selection process for where they go or which yard they will end up working at. And that was also applying for the sophomores that go to sea. And for those parents, I think we have other discussions. Obviously, the students have gone to the training program for the, it's the STCW, Safety Training Certification and Watchkeeping Training, which was the second week of August, and they went to Fort Schuyler, SUNY Maritime, to take that. And that's mandatory because today, to be on board ships, you really do need to have that minimum level of certification. Talking about placement after graduation, there is a big upsurge, and you can feel it in many areas, of interest in naval architecture marine engineering graduates. We had a lecture on Monday from Carrie Filling, who's I think the class of 80-something, I forget which year, and he is one of the senior naval architects running a program in NAVSEA, which is basically the naval group on civilian side that is responsible for building and running all the Navy ships. And they could basically hire all of the web graduates times about 5. That's so great is the demand. You know, we had a lot of shipbuilding. Those of you who might be old enough to remember the Ronald Reagan, and he was obviously in the 1980s. There was still Cold War going on. We had a 600-ship Navy, but of course you then had a peace dividend. The Navy's about half the size of what it was then, but it also means nobody built ships, or as many ships for many years. And now they're realizing that they have to start building, and there's a big push to get more ships built, and you need people to do that. So there's a big drive around the country on the Navy side. And also, I was speaking with Jason Craig, who works in the logistics industry. Now today, since COVID, so much more awareness of when a Panama Canal gets closed up because there's not enough rain, or the Suez Canal has the Houthis, the ships don't go through there, or you have port problems that close ports down and you don't get your Amazon packages. Much more awareness of logistics, supply chains. People recognize you have to invest in that area. So I think the interest after graduation is very much marketing. We even had, I think, a couple of students that accepted offers already after their junior year, because that's how much those employers wanted them for graduation, so a year and a half in advance. So a lot of competition for our students. I don't know if you've seen the pay scale rankings. One of the things we do very well, of course, on the cost side, it's hard to beat the equation that we have here at Webb with the full tuition scholarship. But beyond that, it's also what happens after you graduate. It's all about the opportunities afterwards. Now, typically about 25% of our graduates do go on to some form of higher education. I think last year we had 4 that went to University of Michigan. Another one went to, I believe, MIT. So we do have those, but all of those, when they measure what they do with their careers, say 5 years out, which is typically what these rankings are doing, they're finding great opportunities, great paths forward, good earnings for the graduates. So when you look at the return on the investment, the difference between what you would do if you went through high school. Of course, all of your name colleges do quite well, but Webb punches right up there with the best. Here we are up in number 6th place, actually ahead of Stanford University. So that tells you a little bit about the value. It might be hard to see. We're 2 behind Caltech, 1 ahead of Stanford, 2 ahead of Harvard, by the way. So we do very well in these kind of rankings. Now, rankings can go a little bit funny sometimes too. I found this one. There's a thing called College Raptor, and this is rankings in New York State by enrollment size. And we end up 183 out of 184, meaning small. There is one that's smaller than us, has 101. So what's interesting, we have a rabbinical college, we have a Bible college, and we have a theological seminary. And we're one amongst those. And actually, I think to go to Webb, you have to have, really a belief in this. So put right in there. And another one, this is even more interesting, sports rankings they have. Now, we were #1 in sailing. Now, actually, there's really good selling schools. We aren't quite the top of the heap, but in terms of percentage participating, we are at the top of the heap. But this one, most profitable sports for student athletes. How did that go? We're going to have a great time at the soccer game today. We should start charging for that. Let's see, of course, academics is the core of what we do here. We went through reaccreditation in 2021. There's a cycle, it's about a 5-year cycle. We start again in 26, both with the middle states, which is our core credential, and ABET, which is the engineering specialist accreditation that we do. Freshman retention is a 94% figure, so that is the freshmen that go on to become sophomores is 94%, that's our 5-year average, and the graduation rate, 84%, not quite as good. Historically, some of you, I see at least a few alums here, it had been much lower. When I graduated, many classes were graduating 50% or 60% of those that started. And the reason that has changed is there's much more work today on the front end, first of all, to make sure there's a good fit for students coming in. We have a prospective freshman, the PF process, and that goes through a lot of work to select the right people, not just based on their grades and SATs and everything else, which is very important, but also with how interested are people to come here, candidates, how are they going to fit into this community, which is a small place. You do have to fit into this family. So we do like to do this screening because we don't take transfer applicants into Webb. So we do want to make sure that when we select to begin with, we select those that will fit well. I shouldn't say we don't take transfer applicants. We don't admit the credits that you've taken at other colleges. You have to start from the beginning, essentially, here. So in that respect, when somebody were to leave, we can't bring in somebody into a sophomore or junior class to replace that person after they have left. And we do have a cap of 28 that we do bring in because of our facilities. You've seen the classrooms, you've seen the lecture halls. 28 is what we can fit in terms of the teaching capacity in one group like that. And of course, we want to have as high graduation rate as possible. When we talk about the economics, alumni are extremely important to Webb. Of course, they get a great deal, if you will, coming through the program here, and you'll see later on how many of them, most of them, give substantially back to Webb, and that is an important component to our funding model here. So we, of course, want to get alumni, graduating alumni. We want them to be successful in their careers and give plenty of money back to Webb as they proceed along their careers. Of course, we do a lot of professional exposure. The seniors go to SNAME. The juniors go to the Offshore Technology Conference. That's in the spring down in Houston. SNAME this year will be in October in Norfolk, Virginia. So the seniors will go down there. The Society of Women Engineers, that's for the juniors. And they will be, I believe, in Chicago I think it's going to be in November, as far as I can recall. And as I mentioned, the STCW training on the sophomore series, you have a picture of someone taking firefighting course. Another one is they have to do the survival course. They don these survival suits. They're known as Gumby suits because there's big things all around you. And we have some great pictures of, I think, some 5-foot young ladies in a 7-foot Gumby suit or something like that. It's an interesting picture. Of course, there's plenty of things to do at Webb, a whole list of things on the list. We have Oktoberfest. The Gatsby Party is the star attraction of the spring. Well, I guess the next one after that, Webstock, is maybe the star attraction. I don't know. They're both big events. The Gatsby Party is the dress-up party at the end of the year. Webstock is where all the musicians get to show what they can do. Last year, I think we had in total 6 different bands. They started at noon and didn't finish till almost midnight. So called it 12 hours. Last year, because this grass field was being resurfaced, they were in the front there. But it was a great event, and we have some very talented musicians. You will hear some of them, by the way, later today. The jazz band will be doing its thing on I guess we're going to be this year on the patio on the back, because we're doing construction in the front. I would say when we look at this list of things to do, there are more things to do than students find time for. I mean, just in a general sense. And it changes from year to year. Some students come in and they have an interest in A, B, or C, and we'll buy that equipment and get going with that. And maybe when they leave, it won't be so busy. We actually have in the gym, in the equipment room, a full set of fencing equipment, still quite new. So if any of you are into AK, the equipment is there for you if you'd like to use it. But we had some students that were into that some years back. We fitted out for that, and we can do that. Of course, sailing is probably the one we're best known for. We are sort of the national rankings. We made it to nationals for the last couple of years, into the top 36 schools that are invited to nationals. We haven't cracked the top 18. What they do is they do 2 groups of 18, and then the best of all of them, the top 9 of each group, go to the finals. We haven't cracked into the finals yet, but hopefully this year we'll make that big jump. But it's a great testament. I mean, these schools that do get, they're out there 5 days a week. They're spending 3 hours a day practicing. They have professional coaches on staff. They have professional chase boats. We are quite relaxed about our sailing practice. If they can get out once, twice a week, that's doing pretty well. The workload here is high, let's admit it. Getting the boats launched off of the beach is not the easiest sometimes either. Sometimes you get a strong northwesterly breeze and you're launching in the waves. That's not easy either. So to do as well as we do with as little practice as we do is really exceptional. So that's good to see. And we have an offshore team. If you read the social media, you read all about how well they have been doing as well. We have an arrangement with NICA, the Northeast Keelboat Alliance, and they have a number of very high-tech sailing boats that are in Glen Cove Harbor, funded by Hunt Lawrence, who is a very generous donor towards sailing. And so he supports the actual hardware, which we could never, ever otherwise fund on our own. And then the web students are able to, partake in all kinds of regattas: Block Island Race, Vineyard Race, the Bermuda Race. And we've done very well in that. There's a double-handed competition we do very well in that one as well, going down to Bermuda. So all these things that are really exciting. And we'll see the soccer today. And of course, basketball is a lot of fun. And the great thing at Web is everyone can participate. No matter on your skills, qualifications, it's all about desire and to get out there. So it's a great opportunity for everyone. The Summer Engineering Academy, I was speaking with Mr. Haas. I guess his daughter had been through, I think, twice in the Summer Engineering Academy. It was launched in 2016, restarted after COVID, of course, and been going strong. 8th to 12th graders. Altogether now 230 students have attended. This summer almost 50. The year before almost 50. We had to put on 2 sessions because of the increased demand. And it's a great way to get to know Web, to get excited about being on the water, to understand what it means to design something, and to see if that design works. We'll have the same experience tomorrow with the freshmen and their projects. Let's hope they're all successful in their endeavors. And of course, Web students work as program leaders. So they live in the Motley dorm over the summer, and they can be there, working with the students. Also a great opportunity for them to oversee running a program and to work with the other kids. The best thing is to be able to teach something. Hard enough to know it, but to teach it is even more difficult. So I'll talk a little bit about the infrastructure around campus. We've redone, so the freshmen won't know this, but there used to be a dorm above the model tank, a student dorm, and then when we converted the old classrooms into dorms, they moved in basically about a year ago into those new rooms. It freed up the space above the model tank to convert to faculty apartments. And we've converted them now to faculty apartments. One apartment is occupied by Professor McMahon. He's there with his wife and 1-year-old Thomas. On the other side, we have Alyssa Caliguri, who is our Director of Student Affairs, Admissions and Student Affairs. She lives in that one, and we have a third apartment that can be rented out. We have actually a lot of people living on campus. We have Professor Boyd lives in one house on campus, and they have a 6-month-old little girl. And next to that is Emily Harris, who's one of the on-call staff with her husband Jay. And Kayla Green is living also in another apartment on campus. So Emily and Kayla are the on-call support. We have 24/7 on-call support for any student that needs it. We have a hot phone that rotates amongst them. It's very much something that is there. Should a student have a challenge or a crisis, they can reach out to somebody, or a medical emergency of some sort. Very important today. You might have noticed you can see it in the photo here, but you'll see it on your tour around campus. We have 2 new fire escapes. The original ones were, I think, 70 years old, give or take, and they finally rusted out, and so we had to replace them. Those, you'll notice, are galvanized and not painted. And the reason we're doing that, we did one when we put the new wing for the dorm rooms about 2 years ago. We painted it right away after it had been galvanized, and you don't do that because the paint peels off, which is what's happening. So we'll give it a couple of years, then we'll paint it, and then it'll be nice and will stay with us. The library windows have been replaced. You'll see that now. They were from 1970. They were falling apart and leaking and everything else. So we have new climate-friendly windows. We still have some ceiling tiles and bits and bobs to put together, but we'll get that done in the next couple of weeks. You'll notice in the front, the brick is being repointed. We're doing the Cuneo courtyard. We're going to do some wings of the building. Obviously, this building is built in 1912. We did, 2 years ago, the east facade, and eventually we're going to have to get around to the whole building. Just to pick up the last point there, the 10-year infrastructure plan. We have a plan that goes to every building, every facility, every system in there, whether it be windows, HVAC, lighting, plumbing facilities, whatever. And what are we going to do over those 10 years? Now, it's just a plan at this point. We don't know exactly what we do in any given year. It depends on the budget and the funding. But we do have older buildings that need continual refurbishment. So that will be a continual cycle. And we do have student participation to help with guiding what we do next. We've been doing, for example, the second deck, the corridor. Last winter, this summer, we painted the third deck, dorms here in STH. The floors we didn't have time for, but we'll do them in the winter. So all of those things that are improving the experience for the students and for keeping the infrastructure safe and long-lasting. We have this year a boiler control system that's been installed. Obviously, it hasn't been tested yet, but it will be. Students who have been here over the winters know that we basically had an uncontrolled boiler system. You have these big valves that were hand-controlled. It was either on or off, right? So unless you're willing to go to the basement and start pulling these chains down, the valves from 1912, that's what we have. We now have a system which is computer-based with automatic open-close valves with temperature controls in the hallways. You'll see various sensors. So we will be able to make that step not to overheat the building. Of course, since the building was overheated, you're in the middle of the winter and every building upstairs or every window upstairs was open. So that's not very energy efficient, of course. So hopefully we can lower our gas bill quite a bit as well. So that's the point of that. We've ordered, you've noticed also, our public doors coming in the main door on the sides. They are past rehabilitation, let's put it that way. They are ancient. The side doors on the courtyard are actually original from 1912. We've done pretty well to keep them, but they are past their lifespan. We've ordered all new doors, and they will be installed probably over the winter. I think the order interval is quite long to get them built. So on the model tank, on the gym, 3 doors in the courtyard, the patio doors that go out, those are also from 1912. And they really don't close very well, and if you have a strong breeze coming in, you sort of feel it blowing through the building. So, and then and when you have rain, it can leak through, so the goal is to get that so it doesn't happen that way. We have a plan in development to rebuild the boathouse. It'll be similar to what we have today. We have to keep the structure. We can't expand it because of environmental constraints from the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation. What we are doing is we're going to rebuild that porch that we torn down to rebuild. We will take the roof off the main building. We will reface the building in brick, and we'll have a habitable space in the front with a porch, covered porch that goes out a little bit past an extended patio. So that's the game plan for that. If you've been there in the summertime or when it's hot, the sun can be really brutal. It really is hot down there. So this will allow you in hot sun or in the rain to be down by the waterfront looking at any event that's going on, a race or other social event. We want it to be also, to be on the water. It's the greatest place to be. So we wanted to make it a nice social space as well. We built the barbecue down there as well so that people could have events down there. The maintenance garage, that's that big yellow round building you see down by the side of the campus. That was also built in 1912. If we don't do something, it'll probably come down soon. You can see the brick is like delaminating on one side. It has to do with the way the construction is. It was not built very well. Well, built well enough to last 120 years, but not good enough for today, let's put it that way. And we have very smaller projects going on. The Thomas Conference Room, which is where the students have their chats with Dr. Stein, the group sessions, has been refurbished and repainted. You'll see that at the end of the corridor down there. We have on the slate to do, this will be a challenge with the alumni. All of the students know, of course, that when you do your laundry, there are two ways to get there. You can walk from outside, which many people prefer to do, certainly when the weather's nice, or you can go through this long, narrow, dank tunnel. And there are some students that will never go in that tunnel, they hate it, so even in the rain, they'll go outside. We have a plan and a program to say we should move it into Stevenson Taylor Hall in the basement. We have to find the right space for it. We have to reconfigure ventilation, things like that. It's a bit of a project to do it, but we did commit to the class of 2024, who established some funding. They donated their deposits to be able to do that. So it is a project we will get to in due course. So let's talk a bit about finances. So our budget this year total is about $10.32 million. We have 105 students. And this is not operating budget, by the way, just operating. It's including about $1.4 million in capital improvements. So, for example, the project to rebuild the fire escapes, that was $450,000. You don't want to spend $450,000 on something that doesn't deliver immediate value, but you have to do it. If and when we get to replacing windows around Stevenson Taylor Hall, because many of the windows and many of the student rooms aren't operable or easily operable. Today it really doesn't matter. Until now it hasn't mattered because you keep the windows open half the time. But eventually when we control the heat, you'll want to be able to close it properly, have properly insulated windows. So, but to do all of SDH is probably a $1.25 million project. It's not small. So all those kinds of things, and we do them bit by bit over the years. This year, the room and board and fees was $18,640. So around about just under 20% of the funding for the program this year is from room and board and fees. 32% comes from alumni contributions. And it can be between 32 and 35%. This is the budget for this year. But you can see how important it is that alumni do graduate and do contribute back to Webb. It is the reason we had a breakfast this morning for the parents' annual fund, and certainly for all the parents that are involved with that particular program. They will reach out to the community, to other parents, because we also look to parents to help us in this effort. And the endowment makes up about 47%. So that's the $72 million that we have in the endowment. Fortunately, this last year we had a good return, about 12%. Return, which helps to keep the corpus high. Inflation, interesting, so inflation actually in the Northeast as of August is about almost a percentage point higher than inflation nationally. Kind of interesting. I didn't realize it was such a big differential, but that's what it is. We actually had about $5.25 million of debt, which we paid down in the last year, down to $3.25 million, which is good that we did. Interest rate was quite high. The interest rate now is starting to move down because the Federal Reserve has just reduced interest rates last week. Now, when it comes to room and board and fees, of course, these are the fees that you pay. So important that you know a bit about the background of how do we go about setting those. We do two things. First of all, we benchmark against the market and to see whether we're in line with market. And then the second thing we do is we check against the cost of providing the service. And so this year we charge out to you 83% of the cost to provide that service. The cost to provide the service is about 3% higher than it was the year before. But that's basically what the cost base is. So to an extent, we're subsidizing from the endowment for that as well, which we try not to do, but it would be difficult to do more than that. Web charges, as you can see the figures here, and the benchmarking group in the engineering, you might know these names. Olin is RPI, Stevens, Harvey Mudd, and Rose Holman, which is in Indiana. Rose Holman's a much, let's say, a cheaper point than us by a little bit. The other ones, of course, being in more busier areas of higher price points. But we're about 12% below those. Ivies, we use Cornell and MIT as benchmark points. And even Adelphi and LIU close to the local benchmark because they see the same cost structure that we do. So we might see, say if inflation runs in the order of 2.5% to 3%, we might have to see a somewhat higher level of room and board increase than that inflation number next year. This year is set, but for the next year again, because we do have to try to keep the cost the revenue coming in from this room and board fees closer to the cost of providing the service. And of course, we're never going to go anywhere near our benchmarks. But we are going to maintain and work very hard to maintain our financial promise, the full tuition scholarship. And I will mention at the end here, not to go into detail because it's too soon to do it, but we will be starting, we're in the formative stages of starting up a capital campaign, and we're mapping out basically the case statement for it. The last time we did a capital campaign was from 2015 to 2019. That was to fund the Couch Academic Center, which you see. But what you have to realize is the endowment is the core of what's needed to keep the operation running, to fund all the professors, to fund the maintenance of the facility, and at the end of the day, the $72 million that we have is really not enough. It will be a $40 million goal to raise during that. And in the beginning, of course, we start with what's called the silent phase, looking for major donors. John Keff and Jerry Lencrest were major donors in the last capital campaign. They each gave $5 million, for example. So we look for, this is not just the web community. We, for example, look into the shipping community more generally speaking. I think the shipping community and the maritime related community understands the value of what web produces, and they are more likely to be ones that are willing to spend, to put some money into this, to understand the value of what's produced and what it takes to keep it going. So we start with that. But any capital campaign has a pyramid. Yes, you have a few people that give a lot, but the base of it is for the broad community. And we will therefore be going out in due course to the alumni, especially, that's a major target of this campaign. But expect to hear more from that in the next 6-9 months, maybe a year. That'll be when we go more public with it. Probably at the homecoming, which is in May, is when we will go public with it. Just to give you a flavor ahead of time now. So obviously contributions from all parts of the community. $2.5 million a year is that 32% contribution that we mentioned before. Over 70% of alumni give back to web. It's the highest contribution rate in the country. The next closest is, I think Princeton was around 50%, and there was another school around 50%. So we are well ahead of all of the other colleges in how alumni participate. I wish we had a few more billionaire donors, but that's why we pick these great, young, aggressive students, because maybe they're one day going to be those billionaire donors. So let's hope for that. And we do start this idea of giving back here at Webb very early. We already start with projects that go on, volunteering at Wellwind next door to keep up the gardens and facilities. Of course, we have Founders Day in May, when all the students contribute with various projects to keep up the campus. We have Beaver Days, of course, during the course of the year. So it's all about giving back, and it's part of what makes Webb unique, because not all schools do that. And of course, as we mentioned before, parents do play an important role. So finally, I know a few of the parents dropped in yesterday evening. Professor McMahon gave a bit of a talk about sustainability in the maritime sphere, new fuels, changes going on. It's a huge change these days underway. Actually, the desire to change is well ahead of the technical capacity to change, both in the engines that could do this, and then secondarily in the fuels needed to make it happen, because you need greener fuels. Today, actually, diesel fuel, which is what everything runs on, is an ideal fuel. It's energy dense, it's readily available, relatively cheap, and can run almost any engine. But if you say that you have to go carbon neutral, and there's tremendous goals for 50% or more reduction, and eventually carbon neutral, net zero is the word they use in the trade. To get to that goal requires reconfiguring full supply chains, and not just for the marine side, but aviation, which is even more challenging, because at least we have space, on ships you can build them big enough to carry more fuels, but airplanes don't have excess space. So in that respect, it's a big challenge for the world. But I think especially for graduates coming out now, there are a lot of challenges to be sorted, to be solved and get sorted. And I think that all the graduates today will be well placed. All of the designs you're going to do, all of the coursework you're going to do has some component of that. If you're in chemistry, Professor McMahon talks about those fuels. When you come to your design course, you must have an alternative fuel design as part of your project. And so we're challenging you from day one to basically make a better equation in the carbon neutrality. Innovation generally, we're starting a project now. The Couch Academic Center has rather blank walls, you'll notice. We're inviting some students, or these students, to participate with us on a project to come up with a better way to attract the eye. Telling a story about Webb, about innovation in history, because we have a lot of interest in history. But what is the history of Webb's innovation, William Webb's innovation, that is applicable today? What techniques, what propellers, what businesses did he start and go into? That tells the story for a student today about how to think differently about what they see today. And that's what we want to try to use as models for looking forward, and to make it interesting as you're walking around to tell the story about Webb. We have to, I think, make our vision a bit more. We have a mission statement, of course. It's not the best one. It's a little wordy, covers everything. I think we have one graduate, he's very well known to many of the community here. His name is Wami Rose. He went to Harvard Business School along with a classmate and started a company called Love Pop. Love Pop is an interesting company. And they took a technique for producing cards that were sort of pop-up cards, introduced new technology with laser cutting, and basically they're using the internet. They got into Shark Tank, by the way, got funding on Shark Tank. And this is a growing and very fast-growing company. They have outlets in Penn Station. There's one in Grand Central, I believe now, station in New York. There are many of the malls. And so what they're, and he consults with us. He says, look, our mission statement is simple: 1 billion magical moments. So this is sort of like an Apple kind of, way to make it happen. So somehow we have to make the proposition of what Webb is about as simple, understandable, and communicable as that. Now it's going to be tough to do that because we hate to give up that connection to what was. But that's going to be our goal, and Kay is going to be working hard at that with all of us on finding that and a way to talk about it. Because we want to put Webb on the map, we have to make sure people know about us. As I said, every high school student qualified in STEM should turn us down rather than the other way. So that's what we go for. So I thank you for the day. It's going to be a great day today. And would like to ask, does anyone have any questions on any topic whatsoever? Okay. Well, I'm going to be around today. You can always grab me if you have a question. Kay, Kayla, Melissa, they're all here today. Joe's in the back, Anthony Zig is here as well. So plenty of staff to help you with whatever you'd like and questions. So have a good day, and let's see Webb win today at 2